Cap, I don't say this to many dudes.
Whoa.
But I respect the hell out of you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me for the little podcast that I was wanting to do. Like I said originally, when I wanted to do this, it was mainly about the meetup and talking about what we all showed up with and what we all looked at, and basically just hyper local as far as what it's like to be a collector in Austin and stuff like that. But I know when I was working and you guys were at the meetups, I was missing out. I really hated missing all that, but that's kind of what I was wanting to do, talk about that, and then also anything else you want to talk about as far as like new toys and comics and such like that. That's fine by me. I say we do this and see how it goes, and continue it if we feel this is going to be fun and we all enjoy it, because that's the main thing. As long as we can.
If more than like 10 people listen to it, I think we should call it a hit.
Exactly. Because there's at least 5 of us that I'm trying to get involved for the beginning. And the other thing is, like when I mentioned this to Julio, he was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome. We can all talk about our toys." And I that would be cool. I'd love to have other people on from time to time and say, hey, this is what I have that I want to talk about, and so on and so forth. So, not just us, just mainly for the group. But
yeah, I think the local thing is really our hook, because there are a lot of Transformers podcasts, and like there are even a lot of like Transformers breaking news podcasts, and who's got the time to listen to them all? Mm-hmm. I think this is gonna really shine though when it comes to having some sort of record for what's going on in the group, being able to talk about local stuff, even like, if someone wants to make a big sale, like reach out there, see who's in the community, see who's interested. Basically just a way for us to have fun.
Well, let's go ahead and first start off. Just 30 seconds about who you are and why you collect and how you started as a Transformers fan. So I say 30 seconds, of course. That's just to keep it short. But Trenton, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Trenton, live in Austin. I started collecting, I guess it's about 3 years ago now. I've been a Transformers fan most of my life since I was a kid. I remember renting the 1986 movie from the video store more times than anyone should rent a single movie. but as a kid, it's what you want to see. And someone I worked with had a toy collection next to me, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. And so I just was going to run to the stores and grab, like, I don't know, 2, 3, just something for my desk. Then I just started going a little nuts. Right now, I'm only collecting masterpieces or things that fit well in with that scale. I had to kind of give up on collecting everything because my spending was already out of control. I'm not amazing when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I really enjoy it, and I like the group, and I found the group through someone else, and here I am.
Cool. Patrick, you want to go ahead and talk a bit?
No, I'm going to pass. I can't talk about myself for less than 10 minutes. No, I was actually just chatting with a buddy of mine today about how the ball got rolling. Like with Trent, my first experience with Transformers was renting the 1986 movie, and I probably didn't watch it that many times on the whole, but something about it always stuck with me just because it was so extremely like mythic. It was sort of just an excuse to have really cool-looking dudes do really heroic things. And I bought a few of the toys that were out at the time, and this was early Generation 2, but it never really stuck, because I think for me they weren't enough of, like, action figures. Mm-hmm. And then that was it until college, and a couple things happened. I got a really geeky roommate and some other really geeky friends who made me watch Beast Wars. And then with the Michael Bay movies coming out around that time, that sort of reminded me, that I had this part of my heart there. And then they started collecting a few of the toys, and never very seriously, but I realized, like, how good they were now. Like, oh my gosh, these are action figures that also transform. And then the nail in the coffin was, I started dating my wife-to-be, and this is about 6 years ago now. And I said, there's this new Transformers movie coming out, and I think I'm going to buy one of these Transformers. I had like 10 at the time as like random gifts and stuff. And she thought it was the cutest thing ever, and she bought one, and well, that was it. Because like a girl thought it was cute. And now somehow I have like 2,000 robots in my house.
In my defense, I'm going to come back real quick.
Okay.
Patrick mentioned me starting the movie. No, I'm older than he is. I started with the cartoon show when I was really young.
That's perfect for you, man.
Let me put an embarrassing quote out on the internet, because that's the best thing you should always do. When I was really young, I got teased a lot because apparently at one point in time, one day when I didn't want to go to school, I said that my activators were stuck, which was supposed to be a Transformers reference. I thought was adorable. But no, and I had several of the toys as a kid. I had two cups for some reason I've never been able to figure out. I just had 2 copies of that same toy.
Great character, kind of.
I got rid of all my toys a while back, or they got lost, broken, or just, stuff happens. So all my new stuff was generations when I first started collecting, and now only collect masterpieces. So.
Well, with me, I've always been a fan. I mean, I remember going to kindergarten and then getting out of school, and I was staying with my friend's grandmother when I would get out of school, and he and I would race back to her house so we could get there in time for the, after-school cartoons that would air, Transformers, of course, being one of them. I can remember sitting on her floor watching the cartoons, and whenever the credits would start rolling and that credit animation at the very end was going, I hated that, and I loved it because that was the last bit of Transformers that I would get to see.
Oh.
and it was like, I held on to that. I hated it because I knew that it was ending, and that was basically saying, hey, this is it, this is all the show. But I loved it because it was like, you held on to it as much as you could. But I didn't have a lot of toys growing up. But all the toys that I had as a kid, I still have as an adult. I took care of them all. And throughout the years, I kept going through the toys section, and I would look at the toys, and I would look at the animal Transformers. What in the world is this? I hate it. It was stupid. It was dumb.
I went through the exact same thing. I was as a little kid, I was a truck not monkey kid before I even knew what that was.
Uh-huh.
It was just too different for me, and I just completely shut down that.
Yeah.
Those toys.
Well,
I never collected. I didn't reject change. I actually watched the Beast Wars cartoon show when I watched it. I didn't watch it consistently. I didn't watch next episode. I never saw. I've still yet to see the entire saga, but I did quite enjoy watching it at the time. My best friend was very obsessed with Dinobot. We were watching stuff made for below our age group, and we were above that. That's what I still do, so there's really not much that's changed. He and I were watching, the early Power Rangers and Beast Wars about the same time.
Well, even though I wasn't a fan of the toys, my whole life I've always walked through the toy section, and I would always look for the Transformers, and I would always sit there and think, these aren't my Transformers, but I'd still look at them. I didn't really get back into the fandom until the first movie came out. Before the first movie came out, though, I did buy for $20 Leader Class Cybertron Prime.
Yeah, that big thing.
Yeah, and I loved it because I'd never had an Optimus Prime, so I was like, oh, I was an adult, I had spending money. I was like, oh, cool, let's buy this. And then the movie came out, and I was like, oh, I'll buy the 70s Camaro Bumblebee. And I remember transforming it, thinking this looks stupid, but this is still kind of cool. Then not about, I guess, 2-3 years ago, I really started purchasing a little bit more, and then when I joined the group is when I really started buying heavily. But there was a time in which I would look online and see Transformer fan 2005 and Cybertron, and I remember thinking, this is weird. Why do people have Transformer fan pages online? This is so goofy. But I would always go back and look at them too. So I finally embraced what I am, and
had to let it go. Okay, no.
Exactly.
Dinobot was actually kind of important for me, both as a toy and as a character, because like I said, I watched Beast Wars in college, And right around then, this amazing thing was happening that I was only really barely conscious of. The sort of like Classics universe phenomenon started.
Yeah.
Even today, I'm mostly a Generations collector. And I was vaguely aware that Classics toys had happened. But I went out there probably after watching like Code of Hero with my roommate Jim and being like, oh my god, this is the best Transformers ever. And I go out there and who is sitting on a shelf, on a peg for $9.99? It's a brand new Dinobot figure. And that's when I realized that, like, you know, this is a brand that really appreciates its own history and its influences, and you know, obviously I bought that figure and I still have it.
Yeah. Is there any figure before y'all got into heavy collecting that you looked at that you said, I don't need this is goofy, but now you look back and say, oh man, I wish I'd bought this?
Yes.
I'll be the first answer. It would be the anniversary primes that were coming out, the 20th and the 25th. I remember looking at those thinking, that's really cool, gee whiz, but I'm not a kid, I don't need that. Now that I'm a collector, I'm like, son of a biscuit.
That happened to me with the, there was a game store, well, not really, it was more of a comic store, actually. It was a mix. It was a game and comic store that was near my, my college, where all this was happening. And they got in the universe Legends, you know, like Brawn and Wheelie and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought at the time, well, you know, these are like fake. They're like kiddie things. They must not really count. And now a lot of them are very rare and valuable.
Yeah.
And I went back there about 2 years later and he still had some of them and I wound up buying them then because then I kind of had more of an appreciation of them. But I had to, you know, eventually find Wheelie and some of those other guys on eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I had anything like that because again, I didn't. It was actually for me. It was for the record because you know you guys both have much more appreciation for them than I do. It was not the Bay movies. It was the War of Cybertron games that brought me back. My only thing that really I considered was kind of wishing that I had started when War for Cybertron came out because I really thought heavily about it. Like I was like, you know, maybe I should go out and see what's out there for Transformers. Maybe they have some based on this game, and I never got that Optimus from that, which I like that design from the first one so much better than the Optimus that came out of
that toy is amazing because its complexity, and that's, you know, puzzle play is part of the Transformers, and the puzzle play that toy incorporates, and just the figure itself and its stance, it's just an amazing looking toy. It's really cool.
I can't say I ever saw it on shelf, but I wish that I'd started then, so I could have actually found it. You know what I mean? I wish that if I was going to do this, I'd got into it then.
Your relationship with Game 1 and Game 2 is exactly my relationship with, like, Movie 1 and Movie 2. Because, like, I watched Movie 1 and I was like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. But with Movie 2 was when I was finally like, oh, okay, I'm a collector now. Which is ironic because Movie 2 is a steaming pile of horse. But somehow the design team was really on their game and were producing just some of the, you know, to this day, most amazing Transformers.
Oh yeah, I still say the leader class from Revenge of the Fallen and of course going into Dark of the Moon, that leader class Optimus Prime is by far one of the best toys for Transformers. It's beautiful in both modes, and the transformation is complex enough to be enjoyable, but not too hard that you're like, F this, I can't do it.
Well, whenever I want to sort of fool people into thinking this is a legitimate hobby, I show them that guy. And I don't spend like 30 minutes sitting there in front of them transforming them, but you know, I can show them like an image and be like, okay, this thing goes from this to this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not a flaw you can catch really in either mode within reason. Like, oh, you know, that doesn't really look like it's supposed to.
Yeah. Did anybody else have anything else to say about just collecting in general?
Well, you know, just because it was something that's in my head, I might as well. My first Optimus Prime was a toothbrush holder, so I'm fairly happy that pretty soon with the masterpiece we released, the MP10, I'll finally have a Prime I can really be proud of with a trailer.
I still have my first Prime, and it's my only figure from my childhood days I still have. The Generation 2 Optimus Prime. You know, not the laser or the hero, but the original mold in the Generation 2 version. And I lost all his accessories. I still have his basic trailer, but then they came out with one of those upgrade kits, and I could give him like his fists back and a weapon.
Oh, cool.
So that's cool. I still have that.
Now, when you say are you talking about the one with the black trailer?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow, I actually didn't realize that was from that one.
Well,
That's
it had
fine.
that
Right.
infamous
Black
sound
trailer.
box, which is still a joke in my family. Like, if you want to get my family to just laugh for 10 minutes for no reason, just say, I am Optimus Prime. I am Optimus Prime. Like, you'll have them on the floor.
Did that thing have a voice box with it?
Yeah.
Sound box? Okay.
You know, I was reading an article on TF Source that when someone brought that for Peter Cullen to sign, he said he didn't know they made a black trailer Optimus Prime. Like, he'd never heard of the G2 toy.
Huh. I wonder how long it was before he actually owned a Optimus Prime toy. Or an Optimus Prime toy.
I'm not even sure he still does. I'm sure he does, but I mean, you know.
Oh, at this point, he's probably got a whole room of them.
Probably because people, like, send them into him. Like food.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on real quick. Steve should be joining us here soon, but in the meantime, and he can talk about it, I'm sure his lists or his history can extend back.
And I told you I could talk about myself for hours.
Yeah, hey, we all can, I think. But anyway, let's move on to what I put down for number 2. The location for the meeting, what do y'all think? The slabs, you like it?
I do. I really, first off, I'm upset with the whole thing with Emerald Tavern.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I tried to, kind of brush it off as, well, they've got to do what they've got to do. But I think
for people who haven't tuned in before, can you maybe put that in context?
Well,
tuned in. This is the first one. There's no way they could have tuned in before. No, I'm kidding. I know what you mean.
previously on the awesome. Well, our original meetup place that I made arrangements for, because I organized a successful meetup of this group that we've continued since the first time. Got me a little cred. Yeah, that's right. Little golf clap there.
Yeah, Craig, if we're going to talk about cred, Patrick, who was the first one to say, hey, y'all, let's meet up?
Yeah, no, I know. Before Trent did Emerald Tavern, it was just you and me meeting at Spider House. So.
And then once down south, and we had...
Oh, yeah, Philip Reed and
I
rushed over him. I didn't realize who he was at first.
You guys still have not met in person.
But no, back to Trent's story.
All right, so Trent, go on.
So I was just looking for a place to meet up, and we came to. I asked Emerald Tavern if they'd be okay with it, and we planned it well in advance. It had like a 2-month window or something. They were interested, and then pretty successful. I remember we pretty much, had a lot of people there, a lot of space. I brought in a ton of stuff, and then we, started meeting there for several months, and then they decided we didn't quite fit into their, I guess, current rules, or I guess they were worried that they were losing business with us there. I'm not sure. I'm not going to pretend to know. And I can understand kind of where they're coming from, but at the same time, we did make a point to buy stuff and to eat stuff. And I was also coming there off hours and gaming, but because they drove us away, none of my friends go there anymore. So there's something to be said for just the publicity that you create by doing that. And I've heard they've been struggling because they're so close to Dragon's Lair anyway. So
yeah.
Just putting that out there.
As soon as we went to Emerald Tavern the first time, which is long before we started meeting as Transformers stuff. Me and my wife are into gaming. Yeah, we thought this place is really amazingly cool and we want to support it, but they feel like they're probably doomed because it's such an esoteric business model, and there never seem to be all that many people there. And we were sort of like, yeah, we're gonna come here and try and spend money as often as we can, but then yeah, they gave the cold shoulder to us because we were customers, but we weren't enough of the right kind of customers or something. And so it's not even like a conscious thing, screw those guys. I just don't ever really have the desire to go back. So it's sad.
I really like that second place you went to.
Mr. Tramps.
Mr. Tramps. I really like that. I like slabs. I'm a little scared of Transformers plus barbecue. Their food is good, and they seem very welcoming. And I kind of like the fact that they're close to Emerald Tavern. It feels a little bit like a middle finger, even if they're probably not even aware. But it does feel a little like that, which is kind of just a little, a little gratifying, and that kind of Schadenfreude, dark side of yourself.
Yeah, Trent, you're always the mean one.
I know, I'm such a mean.
Yeah, and I do try and support. Like even when we were at Emerald Tavern, I would always buy one or two beers, even when I was working and I was driving a company vehicle. One beer, I'm gonna feel fine doing that. Yeah, so
buy a pretzel and a smoothie at least, and oftentimes I'd look at the games and. I mean, 2 out of the 4 times we met there, I picked up something while I was there. I mean,
yeah. But that happens sometimes. People will say, "Well, this isn't working out for us, so you need to leave." And instead of talking to us,
that would have been okay, but they didn't do it that way.
Yeah,
either.
the passive aggressive cold.
Yeah, it was more of a blunt, just leave, please. But we're out of there now. Chances of us ever going back are slim.
Why?
So, and I think that's the big problem with where are we going to meet up, because it's basically just a bunch of people walking in, bringing a bunch of toys that we like to set up and show off. Which, raise your hand if you think some people bring. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't bring what you want to, but you know what? Sometimes you don't need to bring a toy that's been out for 2 or 3 years. I just saying. If, maybe if somebody wants to see it, I can understand, but. I do think we have a tendency to bring too much stuff. It's kind of like as a kid, you really want to show off all your toys. And I can really appreciate that. I really can. But, some restraint is needed sometimes. So that's just my 2 cents. But, I don't know. I like Slabs. I think it's nice. I've only been there once, and that was last time. Before I left, I ordered a sandwich and a drink to go because, again, I'd already eaten lunch, but I want to support the place. If they're going to let me show up and enjoy time with friends, then I'm going to support them. So,
my thoughts are, I thought Mr. Tramps was a really good fit for us, in the fact that, it was a bar, so it was somewhat adult, but, they had kind of a fun spirit there, and they had audio-visual stuff we could use, and there's plenty of room. The one thing that I wasn't getting about Mr. Tramps is, honestly, just the light level was very low. And, that sounds pedantic, but I actually have really bad night vision, dark vision. And everyone's bringing all these toys to you, and you want to be like, ooh, hey, look at the paint job. And, it was... So I actually have no idea why we switched or if it's a permanent switch, but Slabs...
We switched because... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go on.
We switched because they weren't able to support a Saturday meet time because of football. They are primarily a sports bar.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe when the football season's over, we can, go back there, or maybe do like a Slabs / then Mr. Tramps, then Slabs, That might be a cool way to do it too, kind of.
Yeah, I would imagine that the lighting issue could be easily resolved. I'm sure there's more lights back there. I've seen more lights on because I've been there when they had a big gaming night. It wasn't like Emerald Tavern gaming. It was like Cards Against Humanity type gaming.
Oh God, I would love to play Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, so they have all sorts of things there. They have anything from Our Get Up to Cards Against Humanity to the other night they had before we even had our thing there, they had a queen. What is it? Oh crud! What's the word I'm wanting? Basically,
you're allowed to say drag queens.
Drag queen. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Drag queen show. So they do everything there.
Yeah. So like I said, I thought there was a good fit in a lot of ways. I wanted to weigh in about Slab because that was theoretically what I was supposed to do. And I really like them. I like them more than I thought I would. Again, considering like a barbecue place isn't necessarily the most intuitive. They have a delicious lunch menu there. It is a little bit awkward because you want to sit at a table far to the side so you don't get grease and sauce all over anything.
Yeah.
But there's room to do that. I don't know. The times when we've been setting up there, it hasn't felt like we're competing with too many people. And they certainly have plenty of table space. I guess it's a little cramped, but you kind of have to expect that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had fun going there.
They seem accommodating, and the food's really good. I've actually been wanting to take some of my friends back there to try the barbecue. So, it's one of those things that's what being good will get you as far as oh God.
All right.
Here, let me answer it. I'll answer it for
Probably
you.
hear that in the background. I'd have to
We're friends.
make it shut up. I now get my phone calls on all my devices. So
Trenton, I'm jealous. Yeah, I'm jealous of Trenton because he has friends who call him.
I think they deserve a shout out for being awesome.
Yeah, Slabs. Yeah, Slabs is really cool. I like it. But you know what I'd love to do is find a place like a community center or something like that will open up a large room to us, and then hey, everybody pitch in for pizza. But that's all coordination. That's trying to get a location that works for everybody.
I have to confess, maybe I'm a typical 30-year-old, but I do admittedly like locations that will serve me alcohol while I.
Oh yeah.
That's the only problem I'd have with like a community center.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, let's move on to the next one. Number 3 was the next few is just mainly going to be talking about the meetup and some of the figures that were there. Now, nobody. Let's see. Steve is on. Let me see if I can add him.
I'll make a better effort next time to make sure that no other extra noises go off while I'm trying to have this.
Oh, hey, don't worry about it, man. We all have Facebook up. So, hey, Steve, you there?
Yourself.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me all right?
I got you.
Steve.
Oh, we're doing video.
Yeah, well, they're doing video. You don't need to look at me because I'm hideous.
You don't need my drunk ass on video this evening.
That's it.
My computer honestly keeps like sort of dropping video out when it thinks I'm not looking, just to like save cycles. So it's not like it's a big deal.
Well, hey, Steve, now that you're on, let me go ahead and go back to the first thing that we were talking about. I said 30 seconds, but none of us held it to 30 seconds. But if you can give a short rundown of your history and how you got into, hoarding Transformers as you do.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, I'm fascinated with Patrick's dog right now.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
As it should be.
So for Transformers, in my current fit of collecting, is that what the topic is?
Just
okay.
How you got into collecting and why you like it, I guess.
So, not a very well-known story, but it's actually worth mentioning. So the guy, Nathan Kennett, he's in our group. Nathan, kind of a big guy based out of Killeen. He's actually a massage therapist. And he's either running or working at his father's place up in Killeen now. But he used to be a massage therapist at Massage Envy. And he was my massage therapist and does an awesome deep tissue massage. And at some point, over the years, I knew he was pretty geeky as it was, and so we really connected that way really well. But he started talking about his smaller, at the time, collection of Transformers and the things that were going on. And at the time, Prime was on. Prime was in its prime.
I see what you did.
Yeah, you got that. And Prime was on my radar because I liked the animation. And I had happened, it's funny because I had mentioned to Nate that I had picked up a bee, or I was thinking about picking up a bee for my son. And that's where it actually started. So it was talking with him about various collections and gaming and this, that, and the other. And then finally picking up that one bee for my son. And of course, I was the first to lay hands on it, and its transformation just blew me away because I don't think I had laid hands on. Yeah, I know. It's like bee brought me in. Great. It was my gateway drug was a bee. Who knew?
The engineering did it for me too. Like I couldn't believe how good these things were for the price.
The head reveal, I was like, "What? Did I just see that?" Yeah. And that was it. That sealed it. From that point, I decided I was going to go ahead and sort of go all out on it. I went ahead and bought the domain, the Toy Restore, because I knew I was going to start moving into this sort of path. That's something that you guys don't really know a lot about me. When I find something, I will geek hardcore. I have about 5 major hobbies. Collecting is just one of them. And so it went from there. Nathan was buying stuff. I was taking pictures and doing basic reviews just so I can figure out my photography and my copy. And then I would say at the same time I discovered Collection DX and found, oh my God, I can buy new versions of the old toys I had in Okinawa as a kid in the late 70s, and it just kept going. So, bought up everything Prime. I probably have, multiples of Prime up in the attic. My style of collecting has traditionally been of prospective investment. That comes from my comic book days of collecting, where I think I find a figure or a piece that I like. I think it will sell well in the future, likely for my son. I like to use him as an excuse that I have to have this. And so I'll just pick up stuff. And it snowballed from there. I mean, I would say the heaviest of my collection is likely Prime, and now third party anymore. And then I'm getting into the masterpiece stuff. That's longer than 30. But,
that's no problem. Trajectory.
So are you?
Yeah, it is.
Are you telling me that of your toy collection in general, just not Transformers, but your toy collection in general, the majority of it is Transformers Prime?
If I did like a head count, yeah, I think so.
Wow.
But that may not hold truly true, because it's been a while since I've done that head count. That was before I started doing my detolfs, and actually, when I came to our group, I realized that unlike comic book collecting, it's okay to open stuff and play with things, right? And then it opened my eyes up. Like I could see these auctions on eBay of, oh, this is like real stuff that I can actually open up and people can resell if they want or need to, and not worry about, too much of a degradation in the cost that was invested in. And that was how I originally came into it, was investing. So I think early this year, I started cracking that stuff open, starting with the Prime Beast Hunters series that hit the shelves, and that was probably the first thing I targeted. Was I'm going to start displaying at home in my office space at home. Had enough room for 4 detolfs next to my desk, and I quickly outgrew that.
I still only have 1 detolf, man.
Yeah, I'm at 7 now.
I have all my bookshelves covered in toys, but only 1 detolf.
So originally I had, like, in my emails back and forth to you guys, I had said, 20 minutes. Yeah, we're already at over 30. Sorry,
I delayed everything about that. Sorry.
No, actually, we've got pretty far already. We were just talking about Slabs Barbecue and how nice it is, and how it may not quite serve our purposes. It's a great place for us to meet up right now.
I really liked it. I really liked the space. I liked it the first time. I went there pretty early the first time, and there was no one there, and I was like, wow, this is perfect. There were more people there other than us this time around, but it still didn't feel like we were intruding.
Yeah.
I like, the mom that brought her kids through to look at the stuff, on her way out the door and everything. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff. It's loud, obviously, when there's games and stuff, but then so was that other little place, Mr. Tramps. But at least you could see.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was saying. I've seen that room lit better for Mr. Tramp. So if we ever do go back there, if the stars align, then I know the lights will turn on a little bit better. I've seen it. So, but anyway, let's move on real quick. I'm actually kind of glad that you came in when you did, because I was about to talk about the shattered glass Metroplex and the Legend Prime that Joel had. What did y'all think of that thing? I thought it was amazing looking.
I was pretty struck by it. I didn't know any customs of that stature were going to be present. And it caught my wife's attention, which doesn't happen every day. Like, she's pretty much like, robots are just kind of the background of her life right now. But this big black and purple guy was like, whoa. And then the shattered glass with the work done in the windows, just like the botcon versions on the other molds. It was very, very striking. It was a rad thing. It's a lot of paint. I don't think I've ever actually seen anyone paint a figure in that price range. Like, not in person. I've seen it happen online, but even then, not as much as you would think. There's not a great deal of customizing with masterpieces, at least not the full-size ones.
Yeah.
So seeing that Metroplex was a treat.
Well, Steve, does he have the same setup as you with the whole little, what do you call it, small spray gun?
Yeah, no, the airbrush stuff. I don't think he airbrushes. I think he's pure brush plate. I mean, he probably used rattle cans a bit, and I know he's worked his techniques in that. But yeah, that surprised me because going into this month's meetup, I had sort of posed the the idea of the guys that are painting to maybe bring stuff that they want to show, and we can actually show it as works in progress. Well, ideally it was going to be like completed product or completed pieces. But because of my travel, I got kind of screwed over on that. Dave can just churn stuff out just like sitting around the house. I don't know how he does it. And Joe, I think Joe does his stuff at like late at night. He mentioned that in a couple of posts where he's just sitting around like 3 o'clock in the morning or something and doing these things. So to see those things already completed was just amazing, obviously.
Yeah, the Metroplex, that was amazing looking by itself, but then you add in that Legends Prime Shattered Glass as Patrick said, with the details on the chest and everything, that blew me away.
Yeah, so we should say again, because not all of our listeners might be wiki whores like myself, that Shattered Glass is a kind of sub-line, mostly at conventions of Transformers, that's like a mirror universe. So Shattered Glass Prime is purple and super evil. And I don't know if there is an official Shattered Glass Metroplex, but this custom was in the style of Shattered Glass Metroplex, and it was black and purple and looked terrifying.
Trypticon colors. It had Trypticon colors intentionally.
Yeah.
A lot of times they do that, like rival colors, yeah.
What scared me, probably not 24 hours before the meetup, me, Joe, and Dave have this little subgroup in Facebook messaging as we're going over like different techniques and ideas and stuff that we're working on. And so we get this message from Joe or Joel. I still don't know which one it is, or Joel.
I think it's meant to be Joel.
That's what I figured. I still think Jor-El sounds better, but. So he posted to us, he was like, hey, so, what are our thoughts on basing these figures? And I was like, well, that's the technique I'm using is, I'm applying my miniatures painting background to my piece. So I have a base and he's, statically sort of glued into a particular pose that I want to capture. And then I see this big old Metroplex in there and I'm like, that's his base, isn't it? I hate him. But I mean, the reality is, I think he's working on different pieces for our little sort of inside competition thing. But when I saw that, I was like, "You're an ass."
So it was supposed to be you were painting Legends figures, and then as his base for the Legends figure, he painted a Titan.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, "Oh my god, he totally did it. That's great."
He's a trip, isn't he?
I do I wanted to say, I know it's next to nothing, like probably less than a normal person about painting, about painting figures, because it's just never been kind of up my alley to do. But in terms of what I like, and again, this is pure personal preference. Like I think the stuff that Dave does, the really high detail panel lines and whatnot, I think they're like works of art, but I'm afraid to pick them up. And like what I prefer aesthetically almost are things that look like they could have come out of Hasbro, like that Metroplex with a really bold, simple paint scheme.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. There's an appreciation for maybe I guess simpler.
It's almost like a cell shaded, like the cell shaded stuff. Customization is probably more suited for you. Yeah, Dave's stuff it's really cool because the techniques that he's laying across those are not necessarily common. I've never seen it done in this scale because again, I'm coming from a miniatures painting background. But I mean, it's simple washing and basic highlight stuff, and to see those panel lines put into place. To see the actual detail that is molded there is awesome. So it almost is like, don't want to touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's amazing how much filling in lines on a solid white figure like Kronos adds to it. His dirtying up Kronos to me was that looks cool. But when I think of Jetfire, I think of like a clean white. I can understand filling in the panel lines. And that really, it still looked good. I still liked it. But I was trying to say that panel lines, you fill those in with a black liner or something like that, and it's amazing how much you can pop. I did that with my Fall of Cybertron Jazz, and my nephews were like, "That looks cool. We want to." So, of course, they start running to their toys to see what they can fill in.
Well, that's a very Gundam thing to do, right? Like I've never really been into that sort of genre of collecting or model building, but the panel line thing sort of comes from that.
Yeah, I even call them Gundam markers, the tools that you use for that.
Yeah, the microfine markers and all of that. His Chronos, though, it looks like it's lifted off of a comic book. That's what I like about it. I've seen a Metroplex done in that same style, but the guy used graphite and basically rubbed the entire figure with it and accomplished pretty much the same. You probably couldn't handle it, obviously, unless you put a matte finish over it. But with Dave's stuff, since it's done by paint, you can. But I think that's pretty slick. His dinos were pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Very striking. Unofficial Jetfire.
Well, anything else you want to say about that Shattered Glass Metroplex and Prime, or shall we just move on to the next one?
I mean, I think it's all been said. They were all really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was like a competition going on or something. I came in and I was like, whoa, that's, and honestly, the type of, again, like he's saying, very Hasbro, my first thought was, is that something official I didn't hear about?
Yeah,
You know, like.
I had that thought, like, what is this?
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, I was going to say thanks for pointing that out about Shattered Glass, because really before I got into the collecting, I didn't know anything about that whole sort of canon stuff with Shattered Glass. And then I kept seeing these figures, these third-party figures, I think they were, and box art, and they kept mentioning about Shattered Glass, and I did do the research. So I think there's probably a lot of us out there that may not, have that level of knowledge. So
no, definitely. So a big part of my early fandom experience was the wiki itself, the Transformers wiki. That's mostly written by David Willis and Chris McFeely and kind of a smallish group of people. And it's just really enjoyable to read because it's very funny. And it has this amazing way to categorize and deliver large amounts of information. But a lot of people came in more from the toys, and I came in from sort of like a fictional research side at first. And I've come to realize that in the groups, like, people have all these different types of knowledge, I would say. So people should just be careful about what they assume folks know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and move on to the Quantron. Jeffrey set up his not Computron figure.
So it's an unofficial figure or set of figures from a company that is not Hasbro, but it's done after the style of Computron.
That figure looking like Computron, and suddenly he has this giant bow and arrow that he's using. The color-wise and everything, I think it looked really cool. And the repaint of one of the figures into the Terracon that he had there, that looked pretty neat too.
I like everything except the head. The head didn't have enough paint. You know when you get those figures that you're like, man, I wish they'd really brought out the detail on this head a little more and it wasn't so solid one color.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only complaint with it. I loved it at a distance. I was like, oh my god, that's phenomenal. I mean, and then I got a little closer, then I got to go look at the head, and there were two things that I noticed. I mean, this is just being honest about it, is, again, the head sculpt. That sculpt was actually really good, but I mean, the head needed more paint. It was too solid color. And the neck, you couldn't really raise where it looked like he could see past his shoulder. So for a bow and arrow pose, as cool as that looks, with looking at it, I realized he wouldn't be able to see a thing. His shoulders are too big to look at what he's trying to do, and there was no ability to raise his head because it was like on a hinge. It wasn't on a ball joint or something like that you could bring it up. It was like on the hinge that it connected to the body. So
I didn't notice that.
It was more like just opening up the neck, and that didn't work either. It didn't.
The funny thing about unofficial toys is because they're the floors on how much they can cost are pretty high. Like there's almost nothing on the market that's less than $50, for instance.
Yep.
A big toy could be $150, and a combiner could be $300 to $600. Things like that, where like, well, it's missing a little paint. Well, it doesn't have quite enough range of motion. That like pretty, not to knock Trent, because I would make these same complaints, but they're kind of nitpicking unofficial product. With unofficial product, it's like, you better wow me or I can't afford to buy you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to make tough decisions with the unofficial figures.
You better blast me out of my pants.
Yeah, so that's probably my only complaint with it. I love it in every other regard. The individual figures looks great. and what I saw, the bow looked
I love
absolutely
the idea of the bow because I love when they really add something to the concept. So it's like, well, we're a third party. We're not just copying this design. We're adding in something new and creative. I love the idea of it. In practice, it was another thing that I was just afraid to pick up because it was this giant bow and this construct of 5 robots is it. And I'm just like, what do I do with this? Like, I can set it aside, or I could have them in an archery pose, and that's the 2 things you can do with it.
You should always be afraid to pick up someone else's third-party combiners.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Having had that Superion and that Hercules, I actually think that's a very safe assumption.
Yeah.
But then pick it up. Hey, show me this.
Hercules is really good as far as you pick it up and you shake it and you play with it. You know, it can hold a pretty good pose, and that's, you know, I mean, Trent, I bought yours. That thing's really cool. It's all boxed up right now, but I'm having withdrawals now.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I hate you for that purchase, by the way, just so you know.
if anyone doesn't know, I had a big Generations collection, and that's how I started. And I wasn't going to do Masterpieces, and then I couldn't keep up with all of Generations, and so ultimately decided that I was going to sell all of them and mostly get out of it. But then,
there are figures that made a full
Mostly.
circle, or I don't know, like a figure 8 or something, like out of my collection into Trent's, and then back into my collection from Trent's.
He's right. Now I'm only collecting.
Osmos.
I don't know. I might have to cancel some pre-orders soon. Kind of getting out of hand. Like I said, I'm bad with controlling myself.
Well, that's what happens. You say, I'm going to get out of it, and you sell all your stuff, and then you slowly get back into it. It's like, here.
Yeah.
I think I'm out.
Just when you think you're out.
Well, now we all just enable each other.
Yeah, that doesn't help either. Yeah, I do like the toy, and it's Make Toys is the company that makes it. The only thing I had a problem with was the head just looked a little small. But overall, I think the figure looked pretty cool as a whole. I didn't see the individual bots except for the small plane that was repainted into one of the Terracons. I forget names for now, and my computer is running a little slow, so I can't look it up. But I thought it was you could easily repaint that thing and call it something else. And I think with adding in the bow and adding in the little details that a lot of the third-party companies have done with a lot of these toys, you know, you throw one extra little thing in there and suddenly it becomes a whole different figure. I like that fact, but at the same time, I'm still of the mindset of if I'm going to spend that much money, 1, it better be really good, and 2, it better be something from my childhood, because you're gonna have to convince me that, oh, you want to buy this because it's a really cool figure and it's a really cool guy. It's a really cool example of this neat character that you'll like. So that's how I look at it. But what about that Disney combiner? Did y'all see that thing?
Yeah, that Bandai piece.
Yeah, it was. It's a Bandai piece.
Yeah, it's I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say about that, because that again is another sort of portion of my sort of collection hoarding. I like the Bandai SOC stuff. So I don't know if anybody else in the group. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see it. I'm not a big fan of it because I'm just not a big Disney guy. They just recently did a Doraemon. Actually, I forget the artist's name, but they did a combiner of his characters throughout the old school Japanese anime. That's a combiner as well in that same style. So it was kind of neat to see that piece in person, because it gives me an idea on what the other piece that I'm eyeballing and likely will get, because I am who I am. I won't feel so bad about getting it because I thought it was done pretty well.
Quality looked nice. I'm not a big enough. Is Disney anthro is a term? I like Disney stuff a lot actually, but I'm not really into the like Mickey, Donald, Goofy, verse. They're kind of their thing so much. And so it's one of those things that it was neat to see. I don't want anyone to feel judged for having it, because I think people should like what they like.
Say that.
But
you know what?
No. I mean, I like a lot of stuff that's outside that. I guess I always worry when I have something like that I'm going to be judged, and it's one of those things I try to get past. So that's why I brought it up. I brought it up not because I feel that way, but because I feel like people should know kind of stuff is neat. and it's what they like and what they should have. And
that's a great point. I think that you'll actually see that in most of the stuff that I bring to these meetups. So that, generally I'll have some TF stuff in hand, but more often than not, I've got some weird stuff that most people it's not even on the radar. Like,
some people haven't seen,
Yeah, and I actually like that because James, you came over one day when I was helping you out with a particular piece, and you got to see some of that stuff, and you can see that just in the few minutes that you spent with me, where the passions lie, and they're like so scattershot. It's almost comedic to see, but like a piece like this, a Bandai piece or a Shigoken piece. For me, the thrill is the engineering. I mean, if you look at, I'm looking at the picture. There's a picture of it in the group. It's terribly complex, and I remember I was watching him as he was putting it together. But it's exactly what you get from a Bandai or SoC piece like this. It's like the complexities. It's like over complex. It's still bearable, and to Trent's statement, I think that you kind of need to be a Mickey nerd in order to be really into this. I might be wrong about that. I can appreciate the engineering, but I wouldn't spend my money on something like on this because I'm just not into it. But on the flip side, I'm looking at the Hello Kitty Bandai stuff. I'm looking at the Doraemon Bandai combiner, right? So it's like those things resonate to me.
Steve, never bring a Hello Kitty combiner to the meetup.
Dude, have you seen it? No, it's not a combiner though. They did a Bandai. They did a Solo Shigoken. It's a giant Hello Kitty, and there's a pilot. No, I'm sorry, that's a Doraemon one. You gotta look at that stuff. It's interesting. The engineering, and it's all freaking diecast, which is that's when you sort of go down that rabbit hole when you hear guys like me going, well, how much diecast is in there? Is it 20%? Is it 80%? I'm paying $200 for this piece. Can I bludgeon someone to death with it? Is it like an MP1? It's like the closest thing you're going to get to an SoC piece. If I get it, I'm going to bring it. I'm just going to spite you with that.
Okay, you do that.
I was significantly disappointed when I found out that one of the things they'd considered doing as a for BotCon or for something was repainting the Unicorn Beast Wars figure as an MLP character. I probably would buy that just for the hell of it because it's amusing. Although I did look at that figure and realized why that probably was not an idea that was floated for very long. People went, that is ugly.
Well, I'll say this.
It's a great mold.
Yeah. Trenton, you talk about it's not it's not your can of worms. It's not your taste. I was reading a post you put up about the Acid Storm stickers. You're like, put the My Little Pony sticker on the
dash.
Oh, Trent. Oh no. No, we don't need to combine Transformers. No, I'm kidding. But the combiner though, it looked really cool once it was finished. I mean the complexity and the engineering, and to me that's part of the fun. If you give me a Transformer and it's just, I'm tired of cars that just the legs are the back window and the arms are, just flip out underneath and then the head pops up through the chest. You know what? That's a staple of Transformers, but when it boils down to it, that gets boring as heck. Let's move on and let's get a little bit more complex transformations in there. Yeah, so I can see the the enjoyment that can come from that combiner. It's it's not my cup of tea because I'm not a Disney person, but it looked really cool.
I think people backlashing and stuff like that makes me more interested and encouraging because you see a lot of that. Not in our group. I think we're actually quite accepting. But I think the backlash, like I'm not that huge of a MLP fan. My friends really are, which is why if I got it, it'd be
there are things I am not saying right now, Trent.
But I'm pointing out what I guess I'm trying to say is I feel like when people backlash and say something mean, it almost makes me want to encourage it more. So that's part of why I think I kind of jumped on this bandwagon too, is because I don't know, people being judgmental bugs me.
Well, you know what my nephew loves, or they both like My Little Pony. I'll never, ever, 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 let me stress ever, buy them a My Little Pony action figure, because are they action figure? Whatever, anyway.
Dude, I would totally buy an MLP combiner. No, there's no question about it. I would totally get that.
Okay. If it combined, yeah.
So one of the guidelines, actually, so this is maybe getting a little more into general news, maybe earlier than we wanted, but Hasbro has a new initiative where they're accepting like 3D printing submissions from fans through Shockwaves, and we'll make them official products. So that they accepted the first wave, and then they came out with like the list of restrictions that explained why some of them weren't used. And one of the things they're really specific about was there's to be no mixing of My Little Pony and Transformers, which basically means one of two things. Like, one, they just really, really want to keep them apart, and they are very separate brands. They've crossed over on comic book covers, and that's about it. Or, they have something crazy in mind themselves, which you never know because, now we have Angry Bird Transformers. Like, the sky's the limit, obviously.
I would bet the latter over the former because they've dropped Transformers references, and especially those movies they do.
All the Hasbro properties have crossed over from the beginning. That dates way back to the 80s when Marvel Productions was running everything.
Mm-hmm. Why, Patrick, I wonder why they did the whole no printing of saddles. Did you see that guideline?
Yeah. I'm sure that has to do with their My Little Pony brand identity.
Yeah.
Like, they're in the My Little Pony universe, it's important that people not ride ponies for the same reason that, it's important that the Transformers are Transformers and not, like, piloted mecha.
Yeah.
I think that's probably accurate.
All right. Anything else about the Disney Combiner? If not, we'll let Steve talk about his little toys that he opened up.
I like the Combiner. I just wish it wasn't just Disney. If they did like a WB version of this.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny that we're talking about this Bandai thing when Takara actually has official Disney Transformers. Mm-hmm. They have a Mickey Mouse and a Donald Duck because Takara does a lot of strange things.
I would totally buy a Disney movies based Disney Combiner. If you had like, I don't know, something you were able to come up with like, well, yeah, but I mean like more of their animated stuff. I mean, if you had the various, I don't know, princess characters, for example, had some kind of combiner. As ridiculous that sounds.
The set of things that I would find amusing is not the same as the set of things I would buy. Let me just put it that way.
I don't know if I would buy it anymore. It's not in my collecting realm. But I would definitely encourage people. It'd be like, hey, you should check out this thing. If anyone had half an interest, I'd try to sell them on it. I'm really bad about trying to convince people to spend money that I don't want to spend on.
I say whatever.
Spending by proxy.
Yes, Trent. Yes, you are.
Whatever combiner they come up with, the rug from Aladdin can be the cape for the.
Exactly.
That's how I see that. Well, I tell you what, Steve. So I saw that you had the Voltron there. That looked really cool.
I brought a lot of stuff I didn't really put up on the table.
Yeah, the one thing that I was really interested in is the unboxing that you did. Those little, they look like animal figures.
The Biclones.
The Biclones. What are the Biclones?
Yeah. So the Biclones is made by Young Toys out of South Korea, and some people might know the Tobots. There was a Tobots line a couple of years ago, and it was a South Korean cartoon CG based series. These sort of animated cars that turned into combiners, sort of thing. And the line apparently did really well for Young Toys, so they decided to move on to a new sort of setup called Biclones. And the premise is. The premise is
there's no judging, Steve. There's no judging here.
It's very Far East. It's very it's almost everything out of Japan. It's for the kids and it's kid based, right? It's kids driving mecha. It's kids doing whatever. I mean, we saw it in Web Diver where it's kids going into the ether and having these avatar mecha that they pilot throughout the web and blah, blah, blah. So Biclones is basically these kids on bicycles and they have these, this connection to these bots that are based off of constellations. So you have, Taurus and Scorpio and all of those. And I saw them hit earlier in the year, maybe it was mid-year. Tobots was on my radar, but I didn't like the way that they looked. And it was around the same time that we were some of us were geeking out on those the StarCast stuff, right? The Dino Combiner.
Oh, yeah.
Vehicle Combiner.
Chinese, not Japanese.
Yeah, right. And I've got both of those as well. And the difference in qualities, it's night and day, even though those are actually pretty cool. So the Biclones has been developed, these are toys made to be played with. The quality is great. The QA and QC on them is fantastic. The Tampo graphics on them are awesome. I wish they were matte. I'm just more of a matte guy rather than gloss. So, they can get very fingerprinty. So yeah, Paul and I pulled open one of them. So you get these, you can buy them one at a time. You can even buy the kids. They're like 3 3/4 figures, the kids with their bicycles, and one of them actually has training wheels. It's hilarious. So you can get these, these constellation-based figures one at a time, or you can buy the dual sets where it's one combiner per box. And the one we opened it up was the Taurus and the Scorpio. What was his name? Was it Aries or something? I forget what it's called. Or the combiner that it was. And we just immediately tore into it, disregarding the instructions, and we kind of sat there for probably a good 20 minutes. The engineering in them is awesome. Like, I was trying to make this thing happen where you split the arms to become the scorpion pinchers and everything, and it just wasn't working, and I couldn't get it. And then I realized, they actually rotate the figure 90 degrees, and what you thought was going to split open wasn't going to do anything that you thought it was going to do. It was this other piece. It was a shoulder. And then suddenly it flips open, and you're like, oh my God, that's fantastic. So that was actually really, really pretty cool. But we finally did give in to reading the instructions. I think it was like 16 to 18 steps each. So that's kind of cool. I mean, they are targeted for kids, but these are, 16 to 18 steppers. There's no bot mode. It's the animal, and then it's the piece of the combiner. So you have a, torso with the arms, and you have the legs, and they swap even in the show. You can swap the top of one of the combiners with the top of the other one, and that becomes a different sort of combo powered up guy. The coolest thing, as far as I'm concerned, is there is a fifth piece on the near horizon that's called, I think it's Ursa. And Ursa allows you to combine the two combiners into one giant combiner. So if you saw like the size of Taurus is actually pretty big.
Yeah, this thing's pretty big.
Right. So he's actually he becomes the right leg of this other combiner, of this massive combiner. So once I saw that was happening, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get these, and got them imported. And it took maybe like 2.5 weeks. There's a Korean toy store, I think that's what it is, .com. Very accommodating. The customer support was, really good to keep in contact with me and let me know when things left, checked in on me once they arrived, all of that stuff. But yeah, they're great. They're fun as all get out. They have little pilots. They give you these little PVC kids that you can sort of stick in the it's almost like the Diaclone, the old Diaclone magnetic guy. Mm-hmm. They have their own little seats, and you drop them in there. And so, I mean, I haven't played with them since that day because of work and stuff. But the set of the two combiners are certainly going to get their own space in one of my DTOFs. Easily.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I do like the fact how these are for kids. They're great. We had to look at the instructions. I love it when you get a toy for kids and it's to the point where you still have to look at the instructions.
Yeah. And they're chipped. They're chipped too. They have sounds. They do sound effects and scream at you in Korean a little bit.
Cursing.
That's actually an interesting topic, but I don't want to derail too much. I like it when, I always thought that it was neat when, you would figure these figures out, especially as kids, on your own. And I dislike some of the lack of interest in making these things complex anymore. But at the same time, I've read enough reports to know now that what we were running into was a lot of little kids getting stuff beyond their scope and just turning to their parents who got sick of having to transform it all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a tangent, but one that it's one of those topics that's like, I can see the empirical evidence that supports one thing, but on the other hand, I'm like, but it seems like that would make kids smarter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
I think James, you pointed it out recently. Like that was one of the draws to some people, and particularly in the TF world, is being able to pick up a figure and knowing exactly how to transform it. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm the kind of guy that, it's particularly if I'm going to display it, I may transform it once, and then it's going to look pretty behind glass. I almost wish that I could pick up something and go through my third party stuff. I would love to go through like my Headmaster third party stuff and know how to transform that stuff. No, I probably haven't transformed 2 of the
It's
3 that I have.
That's actually something I like better about. Well, it's kind of true of all of the classics figures, but I guess people would say it's particularly true of the very newest generations figures. I used to be a really like a sort of a complexity buff 2 or more of one than I am now. What with Revenge of the Fallen and whatnot.
You got your fill.
Again, you would. Well, first of all, there are fewer hours in the day now at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And second, it led to this syndrome where like you would transform it once and then stick it behind glass, or you would transform it and then you would brag to all your friends online that you could transform it in only 20 minutes. Whereas just here, like fiddling with the Generations figure I have here, I'm actually not going to name which one it is because I'm fiddling with it because he died this morning in a comic book and I'm sad about it. But that's another story. But like I'm sitting here and I'm just transforming him back and forth. And like when you brought up War for Cybertron Optimus Prime before, I had to kind of bite my tongue because I honestly like the Fall of Cybertron one better.
Ooh, get off this podcast.
If you're looking at pictures, you would never say that. But when you actually pick them up, you can play with the Fall of Cybertron one. Whereas the War for Cybertron one, the playing is the transformation, and once you finally get him into one of his modes, it's like, okay, I'm bored now.
Yeah. Get him into the mold, into robot mode or truck mode, and you're like, I'm tired, I'm done, I'm going to take 20 minutes, and then I'll come back to it.
It's like I have Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime, and I'll always have him, but like I don't need all of my figures to take a half an hour.
Yeah.
I still need to pick that up.
When I get a new figure, I will transform it usually several times shortly after I get it. Then it goes on the shelf. Then it gets ignored for a while.
I do miss when they were packaged in vehicle mode more often because it was like, ooh, like you transformed it once and it was like the real thing was revealed. Now they're mostly packaged in robot mode, so it's more of a back and forth.
And it's like partial robot mode with like the legs still bent back and like weirdness to save on package space.
Yeah.
Some cases, yeah.
Kind of like the movie Crosshairs.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't have that one.
Well, in package mode, he looked horrible because the majority of his truck mode is like on top of his head. But once you get him out of the package, you realize that there's still some transformation needed to make him in full bot mode. You had to lower the back piece, and it was just mistransformed in the package to accommodate the size of the package. So
Probably hurts their sales.
I guess what I was trying to get at was I definitely appreciate good engineering, but what I've come to appreciate more and more in that context is elegance. And what I think they have done successfully is they've brought that into the Masterpiece line. Like I think if Prowl and Wheeljack had been made 2 years ago, they would have more moving parts, they would have more fiddly bits, and they wouldn't really be qualitatively much better.
So, like, comparing the Masterpiece Seekers to the new Masterpiece cars. I mean,
there's a level of elegance that's been brought in.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Masterpiece Seekers, they're neat, but man, if there isn't some fiddly stuff to get them into the right place, and just stuff you don't see them doing on other figures. You don't see them doing some of the sliding and stuff like that they
are any of y'all planning on buying Skywarp for $200?
No.
Man.
Oh, that's Takara?
Yeah. I
have pre-ordered him, but I'm not sure I'm going to keep that pre-order. I'm having to kind of decide. You know how I mentioned my spending earlier? It's really come down to I have to see how well I can control myself and get any debt I might have incurred settled before he comes out for me to keep that one.
Well, Trent, in your case, it's also that you're specifically a Seeker guy, whereas I have more of I've been pretty sarcastic about Seekers before. Like, I like Seekers, I understand Seekers, but like, I don't really put them in a separate pile than like the other repaints and recolors as much. I don't need to complete a set of Seekers. So
But I already have Skywalker.
Paul's not on here.
I have the old version of him. I mean, is it worth it to me? I don't think
That's why I'm not.
Sell for much if I try to sell him, especially with another one coming out in that newer mold. But on the other hand, he's the only figure I have in that mold, and I do not like those side pieces, and I do not like the size of the head.
Well, what do y'all think? What do y'all think the chances are that now that Takara's doing it with the Skywarp, that Hasbro's going to say, "Oh, okay, well if the mold's already ready to go, then just we'll do it on our."
No, if they were going to do that, they would have done Starscream by now.
Yeah, I cannot figure out the Toys R Us Seeker logic. I mean, I kind of can, because it's like, oh, we don't want to repeat a Seeker, but they're going back to like 2006.
Yeah.
And they're not making any distinction between the old and the new molds. So like Thundercracker comes out, and I'm like, okay, that's a little unusual, but probably they'll do like Starscream and Skywarp. Then Acid Storm,
Yeah, that was weird.
and then Sunstorm, and I'm just like, what very narrow area are you really trying to target here?
Let's not even talk about the box art on Sunstorm. The fact that it was the MP, what was it, 03? I'm not always clear. There's too many.
Yeah, it was a custom that they got on Google Image Search.
Yeah, it's like
Freeze Gimlock, right?
you couldn't even,
Well, on Thundercrackers, it was a line drawing of his Classics figure, so like the production values on the MPs are a little bit.
Well, with those Seekers, they're just packaging them. They know that they'll be bought. I'm really hoping that Skywarp sits there for a while and somebody has a sale on it, because I'd like to buy it, but I don't know if I can justify $200 for it. But
I'm still waiting to buy Starscream, who is one of my favorite characters of all time. Ask anybody. I still won't buy him in the Masterpiece, because that is not a $200 mold.
So
not even a $150 mold.
I was looking on Toy Dojo the other day. So he's got the pre-order up for Skywarp for $200, of course, and then. And I know this isn't his pricing. It's probably, it's everybody else's pricing. The Coronation Starscream for $200 that comes with the cape and everything. I'm like, well, gee whiz, how is it that everybody can justify $200 for one guy, but then $200 for another guy that comes with all this extra stuff? So,
except not a stand, because what the hell? I have a stand for all my other Seekers except Starscream.
well,
that I paid $200 for.
Wait, he doesn't come with a stand?
No, he doesn't come with a stand.
So he comes. Okay, so maybe that's part of
You
the.
saw a lot of stands being sold on.
Wait, mine does. Hold on. I have the Takara animated repaint thing that they did, that like weird anniversary repaint, whatever the hell it was.
I know the one you're talking about there. That one did, but the MP
11
No, the original.
Shin Starscream does not come with a stand.
Oh, Coronation. Got it.
Yeah, Coronation. So I guess they justify selling the cape without the stand, or the stand without the cape. I don't need the cape. The cape looks cool, but that's not something I need.
I like the modeled cape, that cloth one.
I had the cape on him for a couple of days, but I like the standardization of my Seekers, and they start getting them in a big set. That one doesn't like have a huge cape and a crown and and huge shoulder pads. Instead, it's like, man, look at all these like colors and badassness. And yeah, Starscream's front and center, but I realized I didn't like how he looked with everyone else with it, and his cape ended up blocking the view of other figures. So I like
a third party needs to come out with a post-Coronation Starscream that's just a pump of cash.
That's a very old joke.
Yeah, I've never heard. So, that's new to me.
So, just to go full loop and complete my own thought. Buy clones, yeah. Absolutely get them. No. I just wanted to kind of close it with that part about it. It's a series. It's a line that was on my radar. I took a gamble to bring it in, and I'm very happy that I did. I think it's a really cool stuff, and hopefully the next meetup I'll actually bring both of the combiners, and then I think Ursa. I don't know if Ursa's going to be out before the holidays, but it would take some time to get it in. But I'll be sure to bring it in once it's all completed as well. It's neat stuff.
I look forward to seeing it. It's going to be interesting to see. I guess it's just going to turn into a big humanoid robot.
Yeah, big giant.
What's
very Voltron-y sort of.
Kind of Sentai, yeah.
What is the Ursa figure going to be? You were talking about one's a bull, one's
a bear.
A bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not up to date with my what do you call that?
Sign, James. What's those signs?
Say there you go.
Astrology, one or the other.
All right. Well, real quick, let's go ahead and I'll move on. Anything else that I didn't throw in this topics list that you saw at the meetup specifically that you thought, hey, this is really cool, I want to talk about it?
I like the repaint of the Azalea figure that he had. You don't see a lot of repaints of third-party figures, for one thing, because they're just so expensive and just deluxe sized. And I gotta say,
or was that some kind of exclusive?
well, they just put the exclusive pre-order for that style up. I think it was a repaint.
Oh, okay.
The
Because
Comic-Con?
That makes it make sense to me. Cool.
So I guess maybe based on that, but still, you just don't see a lot of that.
Okay, well, hold on a second. I'm drawing a blank here. Describe to me what you're talking about.
Directly to the right of the repainted Metroplex, he
Yeah,
had
with the black Texacron.
he had a third party.
So, Azalea is a third-party RC
Yeah.
figure that's
Inspired
being
by the comics.
painted and repurposed into other fembots by that company. And this particular one was a custom.
Was that Mastermind?
Yes,
Yeah,
Mastermind
yeah.
Creations is the
Okay.
company.
Yeah, because I got the Hexatron Continuum pre-ordered, and I'm looking forward to that thing. It took me a while to warm up to it. So, but anyway, back to that thing. The black one looks good, and that fembot looks really cool. I liked it.
I think it's the orange blades. Those orange blades really pop that figure.
Yeah.
I gotta say that was something that stood out for me. And I like the size of her. She's on my list of, because again, I'm always looking for stuff to go with masterpieces. I love the fembots, and she's still deluxe size, but she's bigger than the current line of deluxes. So I think she'd look pretty good on a masterpiece shelf.
Well, a regular deluxe size, like that new RC, she could, I mean, she's not masterpiece quality or whatever, but she could easily fit size-wise with the MPs, right?
Maybe, I don't know. She
RC
seems.
was never portrayed as a very small character. Like,
That's the one thing, though. He's right. He's right. She should be.
so ideally she would be like the same size as Prowl. But I do want to say that I waited a really long time, and it's finally paying off. I'm finally going to get an official Hasbro G1 RC, and I'm pretty pleased with that.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I'm buying her. I'm buying her because I always said if they ever did this character, I will buy her. Even though I'm not collecting that line, if I'm nothing else, she's going with me to work where I keep all the Generations figures I didn't manage to sell. I am super excited about that.
Well, you take her to work. I'm taking her to dinner.
It's too late, but still better than never.
Is y'all gonna buy the Takara or the Hasbro?
That actually, if I was going to put her with MPs, I'd probably buy the Takara. I have to admit, looking at it. It's a little better. The paint scheme's better. And if you're going for G1 accuracy, let's be upfront, she has lipstick.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
I have a Hasbro Generations collection, and I pretty much stick with that. It's more, I can afford it, and I don't have to go as far out of my way, and, and they all kind of fit with each other.
And it's $15 cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
But that Mastermind, the Mastermind fembots, there's been a lot of fembots that have come out recently in the third party. So
there's such a void on the official side.
Yeah, and they're easy to repaint too. Just call them Medic or something like that.
Give them a new head, and they can be like half a dozen different
So
characters.
many problems, so many implications. Can't even go into them.
Is there anything as far as the meetup is concerned? Anything else?
Yeah, I've got one.
Go for it.
Joe Burton's enthusiasm for the KO Masterpiece cars is awesome.
Oh.
Anytime there is talk about, I'm waiting for the KO. Gee.
I thought it was so cool to see his energy when he talked about it. Like I don't know him from Joe, though he is Joe. I've maybe seen him at I think the last meet is where he first came through since joining the group. But it was so cool because he broke those out. I think he had like 3 or 4 of the cars, and I actually, I've seen them around. Obviously, I don't think I'd ever handled one. And he had Prowl, and we were going over it and everything. And it was really cool, like seeing the enthusiasm when he was talking about them, which was neat. I just kind of wanted to point that out that it's always neat to see like new people, I guess all of us, but new people coming into the group that are not afraid to show those kinds of enthusiasms to fellow geeks like us.
I like the fact that they're affordable. I think buying one version of a mold, official at least, makes me feel a little better about buying a KO of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you only bought Masterpiece Prowl and then bought KOs of the other ones, I can understand that.
My biggest problem with the knockoffs is that so many of them are obscured from being knockoffs. Like, I looked at that knockoff MP10 Prime without the trailer, and I was excited because I thought, oh, Takara's doing something sensible and releasing a stripped-down one without the trailer. And then, someone had to tell me, no, that's the knockoff. And these things are just out on eBay, like snaring people.
I never buy from anyone who doesn't tell me it's a knockoff. I mean, that is something that's kind of a rule of thumb about it.
Well, yeah. Well, unfortunately, it extends to the people on eBay who may know or may not, but then the way they print the boxes. Like one of my favorite pieces in my collection because of how I got it, which is a story for another time. It's an undersized knockoff, in fact, of MP01, and I like it because it may not be the most original, but they're up front. There's no possible way you could mistake it for an official product. So,
I see your point.
Yeah,
KO stuff is a blurry market for sure. And I think, Joe, it was interesting because I read about those pieces and the fact that, well, not the fact, but a lot of people were sort of saying that they could actually be factory, rejects and so on and so forth. And then a couple of other people that were around me were sort of chiming in the fact that, their official pieces had flaws that these things did not, which is always an interesting thing. But I think I remember reading, I guess there was a KO Triptychon parts, a flood of parts that were sort of hitting the eBay market recently that were being sold as G1 original pristine stuff. But we see those things in sort of the Macross world as well. KO Valkyries being sold at, premium prices to people that are, none the wiser. That's always sucky. That's like crazy sucky, and I will always go out of my way. And like Trent says, I'm not going to buy from someone that's not going to tell me straight up it's a KO. I'm not worried that it's a KO. I just want to know that it's a KO.
Well, the KOs, the knockoff masterpieces are kind of interesting in a number of ways because one, they are undeniably of high quality, and they come out like clockwork. So it's always hard to get any real reliable information out of like a Chinese language source. But the rumor going around is that, they basically just wait until certain employees of the factory leave and then start up the assembly lines again.
Oh, really?
So first there's, so there's some barely detectable differences, but they're pretty close and they may actually be using the same molds. And then the other thing is you can always tell sort of what's big in the collector market because of what gets knocked off.
Yeah.
I'm always more interested in what gets knocked off rather than the knockoff itself.
And I always want to give them a slow clap when they do something different. Like, that red and gold, as kind of atrociously ugly as he is, knockoff of Sideswipe. I mean, they're taking a figure that they obviously have access to a good knockoff mold, and they're making a recolor that some people may want. It's kind of like the fact that they're looking at knocking off a MP11 into a freaking Shattered Glass, or into the ones like an Ultra Magnus, a white Ultra Magnus style one. I really like that too because I feel like certain companies
changed something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, talking about why the heck haven't they made knockoff Seekers? I would buy a knockoff Seeker.
God, yeah.
So CHM is that company. Yeah, CHM. Well, they're not MP. They're like the I guess G1.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about MP Seekers.
He's not MP.
No.
Gear did them already.
Well, I mean, I don't want my gear. No, I want you're right. That is basically a knockoff, but I'm not going to be paying $200 for that. I mean, I want to go to these Chinese websites that are selling all these cheap versions of our toys, and see you have the gold Sideswipe. I want to see a gold Starscream or gold MP. What is it? MP11, the new Starscream mold. I want to see that kind of thing. But
it might only be a matter of time. But speaking of time, when iGear came out with those, they were $100 even. So it's just now that they're harder to get.
But was that a direct knockoff, or was it just the same?
It was modified. They they got their modified Seeker mold out before Takara did.
Yeah. Where they fixed the whole leg side thing, that the samurai sword look that no one liked besides the original creator of Starscream. Which is...
Again, for reference, MP03, the original Starscream, who of course was made into the other Seekers, has these big blocks of hip kibble that are vaguely sword-like, that almost nobody likes. And so much more recently, 5 years later, they heavily retooled the mold and got rid of those and made an animation accurate.
And made the head better. But,
I'm gonna create an audio book called that Patrick Stinson recounts the history of toys and
more people can listen to this, so it's not just completely solipsist.
No, that's why I asked you to be on it.
Patrick, you should go as Halloween. You should just put the Transformers Wiki logo on your shirt and do nothing.
QR code.
Just write employee on the back of the shirt.
Not even funny.
Like not even talk to anyone unless it's something directly related to the wiki.
I have some friends that I work on a website with, and a long time ago, one of them decided what my family crest was, and the motto of it is actually.
But no, to the point of the MPO3, because totally the people in China are going to listen to this, but there's like that moment of hope. I give me my classic, atrociously colored, neon-esque Rainmakers in masterpiece form. I will get rid of my entire Generation Seeker collection if I can get those and like Bitstream and the Purple Seeker all in MP versions.
So how were the CHM's Rainmakers? And so CHM's they did the KO versions of the CHMS, sort of Geon levels. Yeah. So how were those received on the market? So those came out well before I started getting back into collecting, let alone Transformers.
They seem to do pretty well. I mean, they can still sell the Rainmaker sets. I know some of the earlier ones had quality issues that people are always like, well, get the second edition ones. But once they cleared up some of their quality issues, they still sell pretty well. I started looking for some of the ones that I passed up. Here, there's an answer to your question earlier. Something you passed up on early on that you wish you'd gotten. I passed up on the gold and silver chromed ones, and I've been trying to get those, but they don't sell them anymore, and you can't get them for less than like $40 on eBay. And I can't justify $40 for a deluxe figure of a mold I have that isn't actually even really a character.
I didn't know that they were in the TF game. I came across that company as part of my AT Votum's collection, which is a late 70s Japanese animated adult cartoon of human piloted robots. And that company did a version of one of the main characters, the human form. And that's how I knew them. And then slowly when I got into actual ETF collecting, I found that they had done these full sets of Seekers. And I think Paul has, of course, everything Seeker. And one day he brought them and pulled them out. And I was like, oh my God, wow, they are real. I think that's where I ran across it, was one of Thu's reviews of some of the Rainmakers. And he was like, yeah, and this is actually a KO, or, well, a third party. I guess it's not really KO. I don't know.
There's a little bit of drama with the CHMS because one, they are KOs by the Hasbro definition, and they're a lot less willing to overlook that than they are third-party products. Like they have served letters to Big Bad Toy Store saying like, do not sell things like this. So I wanted to say, when people were talking about the quality, from everything I heard, the quality was there. But what eventually happened, and why I think they're collector's items now rather than constantly being in production, there are a couple things. One, Takara and the club and people keep cranking out official versions of that Seeker mold. So now, now people, instead of thinking, there's going to be none ever, now are basically like, well, we're going to get one of everything eventually. We'll just have to wait. And then second, like I said, the quality was there. Apparently the customer service was not. And eventually he got dinged so many times that people started going on public boards and complaining about him. And he had this public the owner of the company, CHMS, had this public meltdown / tantrum on a public message board, and just a lot of people were done doing business with him after that, both customers and I think retailers.
Poor guy.
That's why they aren't in active production anymore.
On that mold, just for the record, the one thing I will say, and again, I would replace entirely with MP if I had a chance. If I could get all the characters I wanted, I'd probably replace entirely with MP. But that said, I think the proportions on it are better than the MPs. I really do. Like the head to body to leg scale, all the scaling on it is better than the MP. So I really appreciate that mold because I think it's one of the most perfect versions of that jet. Now, I'm not saying you could just upsize it and it would look good on a shelf with Masterpiece.
Of course not.
But the body shape, I think, is actually better in that mold. And I've tried to make this argument to people before.
It's a historic figure. Like, it's one of the figures that got me into collecting. I think given the time and the circumstances, it's just an amazing figure. It's a landmark.
That day I went out and hit up 4 Toys R Us's and started buying stuff for my collection. That day I was just going to pick up a couple of things, check out some Toys R Us's. One of the figures I picked up was that Thundercracker, and it blew my mind. I mean, I was absolutely like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
I might even explain some of my Seeker obsession that I think I already had some of the seeds there, but when I saw that mold and felt it, and then I was like, oh my god, I want all the versions like this. I want every character that they've done just like this.
What was your first MP?
For just 1 second, because that wave, because that was right when you were getting started, but I was already pretty deep into it. That wave was kind of an amazing thing because it was Thundercracker, Scourge, Cup, and Wheeljack, all of which people had just been clamoring for and dreaming about and saying could never happen for at least 3 years since the last wave of Universe. They were all there in that wave, and people lost it, and they kept shipping that wave. I mean, they kept producing more of that wave through and after Dark of the Moon.
And that cup was amazing.
That was a cool time. That was a cool time.
Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and move on from here. We've all seen each other at the meetup, and I'm sure if you had something new and cool that you wanted to show off, you brought it to the meetup. But since that time, in the past couple of days, of course, not much time has passed. But did y'all buy anything recently that you're excited about?
I'm trying to backpedal and take care of some of my be ready when more figures, because right now for the Masterpiece lines, including the third party, it's actually kind of a lull period.
Oh, not for me.
There's not much out right now or coming out that has me, I mean, there's stuff coming out in a couple of months.
Yeah, I got a bunch of pre-orders. I got the third party blaster that I pre-ordered. Again, the 6-shot that I was talking about earlier. I just paid for my pre-order of Ultra Magnus on Dojo. And so, yeah, that's my spending. I'm like, holy crap, I spent a lot. Yeah, so when it comes to the third-party type, there's a lot that I'm looking forward to. But as you said, it's not out right now. It's coming out.
Yeah, so I'm trying to use this time to control myself. And so, no, not real. I mean, I guess I recently picked up, and I haven't shown them off to anyone yet. Honestly, his transformation confused me a bit, and I managed to put a little bend in the plastic that annoys me because I thought I was transforming him and I was doing it wrong. But I picked up the KFC Wheelie, which is currently riding my Wheeljack, or not Wheeljack, Grimlock, thanks to that little backpack that they gave me.
Yeah.
So I got him on the backpack. I don't know. He's pretty cool looking. I might go grab him and just put him on the camera.
Really?
Did anybody get that? Was it GDO? No, what was the wheelie that was made out of the jazz mold?
That was GDO.
GDO? Okay, yeah. Did I have that? I've never opened it, but I looked at it, I put it down, I looked at it, I put it in. Finally, I was like, you know what? This is so stupid. I'm buying it.
Yeah, I went back and forth on that one a lot too.
I had it and sold it, but it was a good figure.
Yeah, I like the mold to begin with, but And I used to call myself a mold collector, but I'm so
That's
far
right.
from that. Yeah, I remember you ripping me or making fun of me because of that.
No, I was trying to help you because like everything I'd see that was coming out, I'm making sure that you knew. Like, hey, look, it's the same mold. I know you want it.
Yeah.
I have owned
That's
every
cool.
version of that jazz mold except like Japanese variants. I've just sold about half of them.
Trenton, the backpack, is that the one that came with Scoria?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So it works as something that
Grimlock's booties.
since he's not quite scaled to be able to ride on his head, so it does kind of make me want that larger, that oversized KO.
We're just gonna Legends
Let's
wheel
look back.
$15.
But he's too
No
small.
fun.
Well, Grimlock needs to be bigger. Wheelie is small enough. This is small enough.
That is
It's
pretty
smaller
small.
than normal deluxe, kind of like the freaking what's his name coming out.
Masterpiece Bumblebee.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's actually pretty good. I mean, the plastic's cheap, I can tell, and again, this is part of why I don't want to touch any KFC stuff. And this is X-Trans bots, which we all know is KFC. Until
Really?
yeah,
Now I know.
it's the same company. I'm sorry, it is. It's just branches of the same company.
Oh, don't apologize. I just honestly didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's only a little obvious in the fact that KFC's official email is Keith@xtransbots.com. So, but anyway, but he's cool. I really like the look of this, and I like the look of. I'm not trying to play toy review here. I just
Yeah.
because he is a neat figure.
He's got a blaster and a little slingshot.
Yeah. I guess to say that so you're not actually putting video on this thing.
Yeah.
Gotta have a slingshot.
But yes, he's got a little blaster. He's got a slingshot.
Is that slingshot blue?
It's blue tint. It is blue, but it's like metallic blue, so it's almost silver meets blue. It's a good shade. The weapons look really good, and the figure is basically the most accurate wheelie I've ever seen. I wish the plastic was a little better, and I wish the transformation was more intuitive. And I was looking at instructions, so, but the backpack area is kind of fucked up. So.
I've got a bunch of turtle stuff coming. Actually, probably should have been delivered while I was gone. Like too much turtle stuff. Like classic stuff. I'm getting a set together for my brother-in-law for Christmas. So that was for the Toon guys, which was around his time. It's going to punch him in the nostalgia, which is kind of cool. I think he'll enjoy that. But TF side, I got the ES Goken, the Mugen Caliber doorback, so it's an SD version of essentially Redbuster. Yeah, so I've been watching that over on BBTS. It had good reviews. I like SD stuff. I've never really bought into a lot of it, but this will probably be my gateway into finally getting my Go Lion SD and that Macross SD stuff that I've been sort of looking at. But I'll probably bring that Caliber doorback to the next meetup because it's in true G1, that's the mold that they used for the original Redbuster, and this is just an SD bigger Duplo version of him, so it'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, Duplo?
Yeah.
Are you using
Big and
Duplo
derpy.
as an adjective?
Yeah. I tend to do that.
I like that.
And I finally finished my Goonies collection. I don't know if you guys saw that post a while back when I was hell-bent on finding, I don't remember what it was, something I was after, and I went to like 3 or 4 Targets in a night, and it was the Turtle comic figures, which I now have 2 sets of. In the last week now I also have 3 Unicrons. I'm not sure how that worked out.
3 like the
yeah.
Armada mold?
Yeah.
Wow.
But one of them, because I really wanted the throne. One of the guys in our group had him with a throne, so I was like, yeah, I need that. So on one of these fits of I'm not leaving the store without buying something, which I'm awful at doing, I picked up these little 3 3/4 inch Goonie figures from Reaction. They only had 3 of the set of 5, and so I've been kind of going crazy, climbing up the walls and trying to figure out how I'm going to get these other
Those
2.
reaction figures have really exploded. I ran into the Terminator ones the other night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised to see them at Target. And they also have the Back to the Future ones as well. I mean, they're crazy crummy looking. I can't imagine what they feel like out of blister. These are just going to be displayed on pegboard.
Yeah, they're not my scene, but I get the gimmick that they're like old Star Wars Kenner figures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
But,
one that I've looked at that I've thought about buying was the chromed T1000, not T1000.
T800, yeah, I saw that one.
That looked really cool, but I'm like, I can't spend $10 on this.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I don't like the paint that they're using because it's though I mentioned earlier I like matte finishes. It's almost like poster paint looking.
yeah.
Like too pasty, and I don't think that they would hold well. So unlike the original Kenner stuff where it was, really molded in color, this stuff just doesn't look right. But it looks good on card, and again, it's the nostalgia stuff for me. So that's new for me.
Well, Patrick, you talked about the gimmick of those things. Is the gimmick the nostalgia factor of those toys?
Yeah, so the reaction, this is why I'm sort of surprised they took off. What they were was, so Kenner, the toy company, made the Star Wars figures and got really big in the 70s. And there was this sort of shared delusion in 1979 that Alien was going to be the next big toy franchise. Because there was also a space movie. And so before somebody came to their senses, there were prototypes made of these Kenner Alien figures. So the Reaction brand started just last year, and I think it was just going to be a one-off that they they found the original molds or the blueprints or something, and they recreated these Kenner Alien figures, and that was the whole gag. And they took off so much, and I guess they're so cheap to make that I guess all of a sudden they're just doing everything from like all kinds of 80s properties.
Yeah, I can't believe the margins. I would love to see the books on these things because the quality is just not awesome.
$10.
Yeah, $10.
And they're $10 a pop.
Yeah, Chrome doesn't cost $10.
Like adult collector tax.
And they know that people are going to buy them, so
Yeah.
Well, we'll see
I
how
think they're
long
doing
it takes
Universal
to
Monsters now.
first. I can't believe they're in Target.
yeah.
Yeah. I was really surprised with that.
Egg warmers pretty easily.
Well, Patrick, did you pick up anything? Since
Right, it's my turn. Since the meetup, no. Right before the meetup, I got the subscription figures for Rewind and Eject.
Oh yeah.
So Trent actually, I bought Trent out of his subscription. So he was getting the figures and then handing them over to me. And I gave Trent money. We might have to settle up because I might not have given you all the money yet. We kind of trade things, like I'm ordering him an Ultra Magnus and he's giving me club stuff, and it's weird. I have a tally somewhere of who owes who what.
What do you think of that mold? Because I've thought about buying it, and somebody was like, "No, it's just not worth it." The mold, not the character, but just the mold.
It's not a good mold.
Okay,
it's not a mold that particularly well fits the character. What I got it for was the head sculpt. Because the thing is with Chrome Dome and Rewind, who are both part of this past subscription, they're Transformers' first canonical gay couple. Mm-hmm. And not in a romantic sense, not a sexual sense, because there is no sexual dimension to Transformers, at least according to me and according to canon. But they have a marriage, basically. They call it something else in Latin, but they're married in IDW's comics, and it's been a really interesting relationship to explore. And Nick Roche, who redesigned the characters for that series of issues, the club designed head sculpts based on his designs for Chrome Dome and Rewind. So even though they have to reuse old molds, you really get the impression that it's like those characters. And so it's a very neat thing they did. I have, as someone who owns 3 copies of that mold, I have Rumble, Rewind, and Eject now. And I used to have Frenzy, but I sold them on. It really is only suited for Rumble because of the transforming pile drivers, which are a nice touch that they're there. But as a gimmick, it really kind of holds back the whole rest of the figure. Yeah. So it's just not what I would call an exceptional mold. Like, I'm really glad it exists because it was such a cool idea. But, it's not one of those things that's just a pleasure to hold in your hands. Like, you pick it up and you can figure it out, but, like, the pile drivers keep popping out in tank mode, and it's just a little on the fiddly side. Like, as far as in like pure toy aesthetics, I have different ways of judging a mold. Like, it's not an elegant toy, but the fact that it is Rewind and that it looks so good as Rewind and with Chrome Dome makes me really happy about it.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah, I think I have to almost disagree with you a little bit. That was one of the last generation's molds that I bought was the Frenzy and Rumble, and I don't know, with the pile driver arm gimmick and with the scale of the figure and the way it looked, I thought they were really neat figures. I mean, they were one of the last things I bought, and so I sold them very shortly after getting them. And but they were, I don't know, I really liked them. I like the look of the new ones. I realize they're only going to really look right in bot mode. I guess that's their big downside, because what's the point of a transformer that you don't like its transformation?
Well, and their alt mode is a tank, right?
Yeah, they're like little mini tanks.
Okay.
And they look like they could be mini tanks. And I mean, I never really had any issue with, there were some third-party companies that were making ones that transformed into, like, weapons. Finding some way to kind of fit them in with the fact that cassette tapes don't exist anymore, especially when I have Generations line.
Now you have the Masterpiece, Frenzy, and Rumble, and they're not exactly hard to get, so it really just sort of like drew a line under the whole thing.
Yeah, he's right. And
get the tapes out there.
They're better. The Masterpiece ones are better, unequivocally. So yes, you find yourself going, okay, so what's the point of these? But I don't know. I thought the mold was neat, and I think I'd rather have a mold like that than have an exact repaint of Masterpiece figures if that's how they were going to go about making the new tapes, which is not how they're going to do it if they do them, likely. But I'm just saying that if I were given that choice, I'd rather go with the unique mold that I like than have them look just like Rumble and Frenzy.
Oh yeah. I don't need him to look just like Rumble and Frenzy. And then, actually part of what I like about the club is that, which maybe sounds weird, but they can produce their own, like, sort of self-justifying fiction, because they come with their bio cards. And to an extent, it's just a bunch of crazy fans running the asylum, but sometimes it's really fun to hear what they come up with. Mm-hmm. And both Rewind and Eject have separate independent stories for why they decided to upgrade themselves into, like, badass tanks. And I'm like, alright, that's legit. You really thought about how these toys could exist, and you gave them a story. Like, I am a sucker for a good bio. I bought that Voyager Skybite, even though I already had another Skybite that I kind of still like better, because it had a haiku on it. It's like, they put a haiku on the box, and I can't pony up $20. Sometimes they get me like that.
Yeah, I bought that with Skybite because I like Skybite. I've never seen that show, but I just like the character for some reason. I have the original toy too, so it's kind of nice to post the real pretty one up to the current generation's one. So, I didn't get anything. Just been messing with the toys I have and spending money on pre-order stuff. So, looking forward to all that stuff.
Some toys I got, which again were before the meetup, but just to talk about them real quick, is I got the Generations Tankor, which is what it is. The Generations Jetfire, which I liked probably a little more than I was expecting, and Masterpiece Wheeljack, which is excellent, and probably everyone knows that by now.
Mm-hmm. Are you, do his wings make you nervous?
They do, but, you always get warned about this stuff before you always get warned about this stuff, because the way I order Masterpieces is, you know how you can get things like fast, good, or cheap, pick two?
Yeah.
Well, I go with cheap and good. So, I get them at a pretty reasonable price, but I usually get them after everybody else has already, like, gotten theirs and broken them. So, I knew to look out for it, and I'm careful with Masterpieces, and I use the instructions anyway, even when I think I've got them figured out. Mm-hmm. So it's not something that really, bothered me.
This stuff is your friend. All I'm saying.
Sorry,
I get my video back. This stuff is your friend.
I still can't see your video, so just tell me what the stuff is.
It's silicone shock fluid. It's safe to use on plastic.
Oh, yeah, that stuff.
Basically, lubricant oil. I used it when I transformed my Wheeljack on the wing area. Actually, a couple other spots, too, where I didn't feel like forcing anything. And if I use this stuff, I don't get stress lines. I don't have to deal with it, and usually it transforms pretty consistently for quite a while afterwards until it completely rubs off.
Yeah.
Or until you put it on the shelf and never touch it again.
It's true.
Well, cool. Anything else anybody got new that they want to talk about?
No, I'm not going to make it much longer. I have to work early in the morning tomorrow. I've got an hour and a half of overtime, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's see. Patrick, you were wanting to talk about new toys and figures, and then a little bit of comic book talk.
I don't know if I need to. I was just sort of spitballing some topics, some more general topics. I feel like we covered a lot of ground.
We did. And what I'd like to go ahead and do is call this and wrap it up, and then honestly, if you like, in a week or two, if you want to do this again and talk about the toys and figures and then some comic book talk, I can host that as well. I probably won't join in much on the comic talk because as much as I'd like to, I just don't need to spend the money on the comics. So I'm on.
If people are interested, I can talk about whatever they like.
I bet you there's plenty of people interested. So you and I can talk later on, and if Trenton wants to join in on that, because I know you would talk, even if Jason wants to join in on that. But let's go ahead and call it tonight. But I appreciate it, and we'll get together and talk about doing another one mainly about new toys and comics. But Patrick, Steve, Trenton, y'all have fun. Thank you so much. And
Thank you for hosting.
Hey,
I'll probably be on Facebook later if anyone wants to chat.
All right, cool. Well, Steve, get back to Texas.
Yeah.
If he's on. Yeah.
Move along, that's all, folks.
All right, man. See you.